You ready, Ram? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavijikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavijikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vāsudeva, the author, and unto Srila Paramātmā, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Praresha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktim Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Now, before we proceed, I sense that this heating is turned off. How did it get off? I put it on. It's not warm in here. Especially where you're sitting. You know, it's, what a difference from standing up to sitting down. The cold air sinks down. Set it for 72. There you go. I feel warmer already. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Okay. Okay. What is this? On this 12th day of July, not July, 12th day of January 2026, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And, okay, try it again. On this 12th day of January 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 9, entitled Liberation, Chapter 9, the Dynasty of Angsaman, text 49, which is the last verse of the chapter. Okay. Yat tad Brahma Param Sukshmam Ashunyam Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha Yattad Brahma Padang Sukshmam Ashunyang Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha Yattad Brahma Padang Sukshmam Ashunyang Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha Yattad Brahma Padang Sukshmam Ashunyang Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha Yattad Brahma Padang Sukshmam Ashunyang Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha Yattad Brahma Padang Sukshmam Ashunyang Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha Yattad Brahma Padam Sukshmam Ashunyam Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha Yattad Brahma Padam Sukshmam Ashunyam Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha. Go over, you can do. Yattad Brahma Padam Sukshmam Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha. Naveen. Yattad Brahma Padam Sukshmam Ashunyam Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha. Let's shoot for 100%. Go ahead. Yattad Brahma Padam Sukshmam Ashunyam Shunya Kalpitam Bhagavān Vāsudeveti Yam Gunanti Hi Satvataha. Anyone online?
Yattad Brahma Param Sukshmam.
Yes, not. Yat, that which, tat, such, Brahma Param, Para Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Sukshmam, spiritual, beyond all material conceptions. Ashunyam, not impersonal or void. Shunyakalpitam, imagined to be void by less intelligent men. Bhagavān, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vāsudeva, Krishna. Iti, thus. Yam, whom. Gunanti, sing about. He, indeed. Satvataha, pure devotees. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāsudeva, Krishna, is extremely difficult to understand for unintelligent men who accept him as impersonal or void, which he is not. The Lord is therefore understood and sung about by pure devotees. Purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11, Vadanti tat tat vividas tattvam yajnanamanvayam brahmeti paramātmeti Bhagavān iti shabdyate. The absolute truth is realized in three phases, as Brahman, Paramātmā, and Bhagavān. Bhagavān is the origin of everything. Brahman is a partial representation of Bhagavān, and Vāsudeva, the Supersoul, living everywhere and in everyone's heart, is also an advanced realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when one comes to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāsudeva Sarvamiti, when one realizes that Vāsudeva is both Paramātmā and the impersonal Brahman, he is then in perfect knowledge. Krishna is therefore described by Arjuna as Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. The words Param Brahma refer to the shelter of the impersonal Brahman, and also of the all-pervading Supersoul. When Krishna says, Chaktva deham punarjanmanaiti mameti, this means that the perfect devotee, after perfect realization, returns home back to Godhead. Maharaj Kṛṣṇa accepted the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because of his full surrender, he achieved perfection. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Dynasty of Anshuman. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, we've had a nice little meditation on Kṛṣṇa, the glories of Kṛṣṇa, who's famous for helping the demigods, right? Fighting with them, and then they offered him a boon. He could have accepted a heavenly planet or any place. But what was the boon he asked for? You remember, Chad? You forgot. Naveen, what did he ask him from the demigods without looking? Look at it up. Huh? Yeah. What was, when Kṛṣṇa, after he was finished fighting for the demigods, they offered him any boon he wanted. And what is the boon that he asked for? Yes, how long he'd have to live. And the answer was a muhurta, which Prabhupada translated as a moment. But I was thinking, yeah, but a moment on the planets of the demigods is a lot longer than down here, right? So, because look at all he did. He came down, and then he had this whole internal dialogue. We find out what he was thinking and so forth. So, anyway, he had enough time to do all these things. And in the process, he revealed that he was pretty amazing. I mean, even though he was fighting and he was with the demigods and he had all opportunity to ask any kind of boon, material boon, he could have asked for a planet or residence in Indoloka. He asked for this boon of how long he would live. And when he found out, he didn't try to use the remaining time with some kind of sense gratification. He used it to completely absorb himself in Krishna consciousness. And we have insight into his thoughts. Actually, these are all his thoughts at these last verses here, right? And just to review, he describes that even in childhood, right? So he's thinking now, the demigods, this is text 45, I think where it starts. No, he starts at 44. I was never attracted, even in my childhood, by insignificant things or irreligious principles. I didn't find anything more substantial than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So obviously he was a very advanced soul before he took birth as Kṛṣṇa and he became a king. But even in his childhood he wasn't interested. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So he's revealing that he was always detached from material things, and he didn't find anything more substantial or interesting than Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Krishna. And the demigods wanted to give me a benediction I desired. I didn't want their benedictions, because I'm interested in the Supreme Personality of Godhead who created everything. I'm more interested in the Supreme Lord than in all material benedictions. So obviously he was already a realized soul. And he goes on in that vein. And even though the demigods have the advantage of being situated in a higher planetary system, their mind, sense, intelligence are agitated by material conditions. Therefore, even such elevated persons fail to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is eternally situated in the core of the heart. So we see, here we are sitting in New Govardhan, and the whole Govardhan Leela centers around how Indra, who is a very famous demigod, he was completely offended that his sacrifice had been stopped by this foolish little blue boy. He didn't recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead right away. And he completely lost it. This is like kind of Indra's personality, right? Why does he have so many eyes on his body? You know the story, right? Don't have to go through it? No, you don't know it? He's saying, no, don't go through it. So yeah, he couldn't control himself, and he raped somebody, or he had some sex with somebody, and he was cursed to have all these vaginas on his body. So he pleaded, please, this is going to be very embarrassing. So they were turned into eyes, So, and then it happens again. Even after the Govardhan Leela, Krishna, remember, he goes to Indraloka with Satyabhama, I think with Satyabhama, and on Garuda, to return the earrings that were lost from Aditi. He's doing them a favor. And he returns the earring, and Indra's very appreciative, And then Satyabhama sees the Parijata tree, growing there, and she wants to. So Krishna uproots the tree, and he's ready to come back, and then he said, no, you can't take the tree. Are you kidding me? After the Govardhan Leela, after Krishna's come back to return the earrings, so there's a little bit of a battle, and Shukadev then criticizes Indra. If you remember the Bhagavatam, Shukadev says, what is this Indra? You can't, So he's an example of someone who is a devotee, has a very responsible position, but the senses, so that's why his name is Indriya, And so he's doing his service, but he's periodically deviating a little bit, and has to be brought into. So Kṛṣṇa is apparently more advanced than him, because he's free of any material desire. Otherwise he would have asked something, heavenly from the gods, But no, he didn't want, because he knew how important it was to completely absorb himself in Krishna before he died. So he wanted to know how long I have. So a little while. So then he has this internal dialogue. So and the whole amazing thing about it is that he was obviously, even from childhood, detached from material sense gratification. He was a mukta purush, liberated from what? And that's what I wanted to go through. So therefore, I should now he's saying, I should now give up, this is the text 47. I should now give up my attachment for things created by the external energy of the Lord. I should engage in thought of the Lord and should thus surrender him to him. Well, he's pretty far along that path already, obviously detached. But he's seeing that now the culmination of it is to absorb the mind in Krishna. It's one thing to be detached, but if you're just detached from everything, then you can just merge into Brahman. That's what they strive for, to become detached so that they can merge into. But we don't want that. The attachment has to be purified, not killed. That's the whole idea. We're not just through some kind of force of will, forcing ourselves not to go here, not to do this. We're getting the higher taste. Remember that famous verse in the second chapter? Vishayāva nivartante niraharasya dehinaha. Rasavajam masopyasya param jishrana bhajate. One can, for some time, not consume. Ahara means to consume, whatever you're attached to. Vishaya, some vishaya, the object is vinivartani dahara siddhihina. But the taste remains. This is the whole point with a jamil. Remember, a jamil was, he was a great soul. I mean, he was trained, and then he fell down. Remember that? And then the whole beginning of the 6th canto, and it's very important to see the context. After the 5th canto, last chapter, has anyone read it really carefully? It's pure nectar, describing all the different kinds of hellish punishments you're going to go. I remember working on that chapter, editing it. Hare Krishna, quite a meditation. So a Jamil, he had been raised as a Brahman and so forth, but he fell down, and then he became degraded, right? So he was very much conditioned. And the time of death came, but he had the presence of mind to at least name his youngest son. He's already in his 60s, 70s, he's having little kids, he's uncontrolled. So, but he named him Narayan. That was his saving grace, And so when he saw the Yamadutas, frightening features coming to rip him out of his body, he was scared as anything, he called out, Narayan, save me, So that immediately the Vishnudutas came, you see. But he wasn't yet purified. After all that happened, he was saved. Then he had to go to the Himalayas and finish the job, right? And become fully detached and purified. But Kadvanga was much more advanced. He didn't see the Yamadutas at all, because he knew he only had a Muhurta left. So he's just, but he's saying now, even that I should now give up my attachment for things created by the external energy. I should engage in thought of the Lord and should thus surrender. This material creation, having been created by the external energy of the Lord, is like an imaginary town visualized on a hill or in a forest. Every conditioned soul has a natural attraction and attachment for material things, but one must simply give up this attachment and surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is, what I kept reading here is how, the whole key is to give up the material attachment and to become fully attached to the Lord. So even though Kadvanga is pretty much there already, he's giving us the insight into his inner thoughts, and of course he'll succeed. So I wanted to refer to some important verses about that, giving up attachment. And oftentimes you'll find this phrase, Mukta Sangha. Mukta Sangha comes up. And Mukta Sangha can be free from association or free from attachment. So I'm going to go to some of the verses that I picked out here. So the first one is one of my favorite verses, which I heard in a class. I think Prabhupada was giving this class, and he was quoting this verse, and I couldn't remember where it was, but I had the first phrase. I was able to look it up. This is the last verse in chapter 2 of the 2nd canto. Pabanti Bhagavata Atmanaksatam Katamatam Shabanaputesha Sambritam Punanti te Vishayava Dushatashayam Bhajanti Tachadanasadoruhantikam. Those who drink through all reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, but the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment. And let's go back to God and to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. So this is precisely what our whole means is. This is the essential means by which the devotees, following the line of Lord Chaitanya, use as the means to purify these attachments, not to suppress them, but to purify them. So here is the drinking. This is you remember the drinking, 3rd verse of the Bhagavatam, Pabanti. Nigamakalpatadogalditam palam shukamukadamita davasammitam. Pibata bhagavatam vasamaliyam mohodahodasikabuviba. That pibata is the imperative of pibanti. Drink it, oh wise souls, drink this Bhagavatam, which is a ripened fruit, a drinkable fruit, a super ripe mango. You cut it open and practically it's all liquid and you have to drink it. That's the idea. So that's exactly what it says. How do we drink? Through the ears. This is the nectarian message of Krishna. Purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment. That Punanti Vishaya Vidushatashayam. Vidushatashayam is a polluted ashaya. Ashaya is, we sing it all the time. Ashaya means to hope and aspire for. Right? This Tulsi song is several times you see it. My aspiration is that I get to live in Vrindavan and I was always see the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. That's in there. So this is the Vidushita. This is the polluted aspiration. And that's what material life means. We're bound to this world by these ropes. How many times do we hear Vidya Granti, right? The knots or the ropes in the heart. These material desires we keep cultivating, and we're never satisfied. We come back again and again and again and again. And it's something we have to go down to the lowest species. So here's Punanti. By drinking the Bhagavatam, Katamritam, the nectar of Krishna Katha, through the ears, and being fully fulfilled and satisfied with it, then we purify any remnants of material desire, which is really what is tying us to this world. And then we go. The Prabhupada says, go back. You know, this famous, are we going? Or we're going back, right? Vajanti, to the lotus feet of Krishna, to the spiritual world. So this, the last few verses of this chapter, if you're interested, 2:37, it's the last verse, but the last 5 verses of the chapter are very instructive in this regard. So that's one of the verses I want to share with you. And let's see, I think there was something I wanted. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so material contamination, that's material desire. By the process, the Prabhupada ends the purport this way: by the process of Bhakti Yoga, directly accepted as suggested in this verse, by sufficient hearing. Now, one thing, if you're reading Prabhupada's books, and you come to the word sufficient or sufficiently, you have to know that oftentimes, for the most time, that means ample, not just enough. And actually, if you listen to Prabhupada's lectures, you'll hear that he used the word enough in the same way. They have enough land to grow so much food. Enough doesn't mean just enough. When you say enough, but you can't see that on the page, the accent. It means more than enough. It means ample, You've got enough, So the same thing with sufficient. By sufficient hearing means ample hearing, regular hearing. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Every morning, Bhagavatam class, and throughout the day, chanting Hare Krishna. The material contamination, which is the material desires to enjoy in gross and subtle ways, that's what the contamination is directly eliminated without one trying to contemplate the impersonal Virat conception, the universal form. Now, this is an important point. If by practicing Bhakti Yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo-devotee. In other words, the whole measure of our sincerity is by how sincerely we're hearing in the association of devotees. Hearing or reading. Really, reading Prabhupada's books and taking it in, trying to understand it, trying to reform our consciousness according to what we're reading, making the effort. Because it's very possible to just come in a kirtan, and the mind is wandering here and there. People have come for the first time. You can't expect that they're going to be totally absorbed in the holy name. But even so, the influence is so strong that they'll think, well, that was interesting, fascinating, they'll come back again. But to really fulfill the whole mission of it is shushusho. Shushusho, Prabhupada defined as submissive oral reception or ardent hearing. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido, that prasanga. There's sanga and then there's prasanga. Pra always intensifies. So there's association, and then there's really meaningful association where you're completely absorbed in what's being spoken by the Guru or Krishna or the advanced devotees, and it's entering your heart and changing your heart. That's the whole point. So he must be, for such an impostor, there's no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. So this is the key. That by practicing Bhakti Yoga, if we take all the processes have to be taken seriously. And you can see that the substance is to always think of Krishna, never forget him. And the most practical way to do that in this age, of course, is chanting Hare Krishna. And I'm going to read this verse from the 12th canto in a minute. But it boils down to hearing and chanting as the foundation of our detachment from Maya and attachment to Krishna, and that matures into all kinds of other services. Shavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, all these others. They come, that's the basis. So, now a couple of more ones that I picked out here. Now this famous one, again, Mukta Sangha. Mukta Sangha is mentioned. Kale Doshanide Rajan, Asti Eka Mahagunan, Kirtanadava Krishnasa, Mukta Sangha Padam Vijet. Free from the... So, who can give me a rough translation of this? Dvijamani, you know this first. What does it mean? Kale Doshanide Rajan. Where's your mic? No one brought the mics out. Oh, they put a mic over there for me where I sit. They forgot I sit over here. Okay, say it so that our audience can hear, larger audience.
Kali Yuga is the ocean of faults, and the only remedy is to chant the holy name together.
Well, close. Yes, the Kali Yuga is indeed an ocean of fault, dosha nide, but there's one great quality in this age. Eko mahad guna, kirtanadava Krishna mukta sangha param bhajet. By the chanting of, probably you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, the holy name of Krishna, one becomes free from contamination, as it says here, material bondage, which is material desire, mukta sangha, and it goes back to Godhead. So so we need to take advantage of it as often as possible, at every moment if possible. So that's one verse I thought of, and here's one more.
Real quick, Vanessa and anyone else on Zoom, the audio is now fixed, so sorry about that. Earlier she was trying to recite the verse and we didn't hear her, so it was...
Yeah, I was wondering. I thought she was boycotting my class.
Yeah, so now your audio's fixed now. Chad fixed it.
Haribo. So then here's another one with the same phrase. No, in the series here. Now this is such an important passage. I think I've emphasized this all the time, but so did Prabhupada. Beginning with 1-2-17. Now, first canto, second chapter, 17th verse. Now this is near the end of the verses beginning with that key verse, 1-6, sorry. Savai pungsang baro dharma yato bhakti hokshaje. The sages want to know, what is that dharma by which the soul can really be satisfied? So here's the beginning of the answer. Savai pungsang baro yato bhakti hokshaje ahaituki apratiyataya masupasiditi. So the supreme dharma for every human being, pungsang, yato bhakti hokshaje, is that by which results in bhakti, pure devotional service, to hokshaja. Now this word means the transcendental Lord. Now as soon as you say transcendental, I mean beyond the range of our mind and senses. But so therefore that implies you have to have faith, right? You have to have faith that Krishna is there, they will reciprocate and so forth. That faith is engendered by association with pure devotees or advanced devotees. That's there in the Satam Prasanga on the last line, in the third canto verse, association. What's the result of associating with nice devotees and hearing nicely? Shraddha, Rati, Bhakti, step by step, your faith is increased. Your attraction for Krishna, and Bhakti here means loving devotion. So, here, Krishna is saying, Sut goes explaining, near the end of the series, first of all, I'm not going to go through the whole series, but a very important part is he describes how does one develop shushu-sho, this eagerness to hear with one pointed attention. That's important. And that he describes by serving the pure devotees. Shushu-sho shodadhana se, with faith. Vāsudeva kataruchi, Syan comes into being. Syan mahat sevaya, by serving the Mahatmas. Punya tirtha nishevan, who are themselves places of pilgrimage, you see. So that's important, that you develop that one-pointed attention of hearing, which opens up the door for everything else. So he goes on, Nasta Prashabhadashu, this is one we chant every morning. Attendance in classes of Bhagavatam, all that is troublesome in the heart, which of all these material desires are almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the Lord is established as an irrevocable fact. So the process of purification is going on, and this is Nasta Prayashu, not completely. Probably would say maybe 78%, or something like that. But you're determined, you're fixed in your devotion, you're on the path, you see. And he goes on, and then, I won't go through all the verses, you become free from the lower modes of nature, and your consciousness is fixed in the Lord, sattve prasiditi, and you're fixed in the mode of goodness, of pure goodness. Now here, evam prasanna manaso. Now you're starting to feel bliss from within, you see? This is the culmination of the answer to the question. What is that dharma by which the soul can be fully satisfied? Well, of course, it's bhakti, and everything which leads to bhakti. So it's sadhana bhakti, vaidhi bhakti, and finally prema bhakti. So then what happens? Bhagavat tattva vijnanam, you get vijnana. It's experience knowledge. It's not just book knowledge anymore. You're experiencing what you heard about. And then here's the word again. Mukta sangasta jayate. See, this is the whole thing. Mukta sangha, free from proper association, and free from all material association, and free from all material attachment. Mukta sangasta jayate. And then then the last verse in the series. Now here's the state of the soul now at this point. All of the knots in the heart, material attachments, have been cut now. Vidyate vidya grantis. Chidnyate, no doubts. Sarva sankhya, they're also destroyed. You don't doubt that Krishna exists. You don't doubt that the process of bhakti is knowing. And most important, from your own experience, you don't doubt yourself that you'll be able to follow it, because you're already experiencing so much happiness from it, and you've gone so far. All your karma is eliminated, and then this is a key phrase which has been revised. One sees the self as master. That was always it. Sees the self as master? That's confusing. You know, I'm not going to go into the whole editorial, but it's low as self, because that's the way Prabhupada wrote it. I'm the master. Ishvare is the Lord. This word by word meaning was messed up. So the result is you can find out what this means by reading the next line, which is the first line of the purport. Attaining scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. That was the previous verse. Bhadava tattva vijnana. Probably the scientific knowledge means it's directly perceived. That means seeing one's own self simultaneously. So he sees oneself, one sees oneself and one's master. Self means your own soul. In your original form, your Sarup, and the master. That's coming from the purport. The Ishvara, of course, is the Supreme Lord. So that's the whole point. You get a revelation. You know, it's revealed to who you really are in the spiritual world. You're still physically on this planet, but you're already in your Sarup, and you're existing on this plane. And we read about that in Lord Chaitanya, Anchu Leela. You know, there's so many devotees. So that's the culmination of it, and that Mukta Sangha is here in this series again. So that's the verses I wanted to refer to, but it's important to realize that we're on this path, Vaidhi Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, whatever you want to call it, but it's a process. And we're not yet, of course, free of all material desires. Otherwise, we'd be pure devotees. As soon as we heard the holy name, the tears would be flowing, the hairs would be standing. I don't know, maybe under your coat, your hairs are standing on end. I can reveal that mine aren't yet. Although it was so cold out there this morning, it was practically 49 degrees. So anyway, this is very admirable, and Khatvanga is just another example in the Bhagavatam, and giving us insight into his own thoughts about it and how he progressed, and it's very enviable. In other words, it's something to be aspired for. This state of freedom from material desire, so that even in the presence of all these, here we are in Kali Yuga, the Pacific Beach. It's very easy just to walk down Garnet Avenues and wander into a tattoo. Did I get a tattoo? Maybe, I don't know, get a tattoo. It's very easy to get diverted. But I always think about Prabhupada, he was ideal. He was completely on this platform. So he finally comes down to downtown New York, and he's got his 2nd Avenue, or maybe just down in the Bowery. But he didn't really have a source of income, so he was wandering in the streets of New York trying to sell his books, just to survive. And he would go sometimes up to Times Square. Now, I lived near New York. I knew what Times Square was. All kinds, at that time, this was before it was turned into a little kind of Disneyland thing. in the last few years. But when I lived there, it was like, pornographic movies here and there, and just like a whole thing. But, Prabhupada is completely unaffected. Completely unaffected. he's looking, and downtown, and he would sell books to some bookstores. You see, downtown, Lower East Side, there was this renaissance of interest in God. All these hallucinations are going on. They think they see God, So there's bookstores down there. I forget what it's called. Weiser's, I think, was one. And they would carry all kinds of books on yoga and Tibetan Book of the Dead and all these and that. And so Prabhupada was able to put some books there on consignment. And he would go visit periodically, and if they sold some books, they would give him the Lakshmi, But he was totally unaffected. That was the whole thing. He was completely fixed in devotion to Krishna, moment to moment, feeling that transcendental pleasure of, remembering him and glorifying Krishna. And that obviated it completely protected it from any kind of attraction. So this is the state of the pure devotee is in, and by his instructions, by his mercy, and by, of course, his books, we're associating with him here through his books, we can get that attraction for Krishna, who's all attractive. And this is where the Harinam comes in, because that alone, alone is enough to take us back to God. If we really chant, purely chant and hear the holy name with one pointed attention. Because it's not different from Krishna. And Krishna is all attractive. This is why it's so important to read regularly the Nectar Devotion. You go through, I remember when I was working on the CC, I worked on the CC here, it means I went through the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita to check if there were any mistakes. Meaning, the production, was produced so fast. And sometimes, and I'll tell you, they skipped over one whole purport because it was somehow written by hand on the other side of the manuscript page and the typist couldn't see it. Very nectarian purport. I'll read it to you some other time. So it needed that. And going through that, or just when it came out, first came out, and read about it. And you read about, the session, Lord Chaitanya and Anjalila, they're just hearing and chanting about Krishna in so many ways. And everybody's completely absorbed. They don't go to sleep. They'll go all night, and finally in the morning they crash. And they're obviously drinking this nectar, and it's so sweet they don't want to stop it, And this is what's available. We're spirit souls, and we should hear about this so that we aspire to get it. What is that famous verse? This is the verse we should all really know. This is by Ramananda Roy. I think he uttered it when he was discussing Lord Chaitanya, chapter 8 of the Madhya Lila. Very important instruction, very advanced. But he's talking about, what is the price? I mean, what do we have to pay in order to get the ultimate goal of pure Krishna consciousness? Which Prabhupada translated the first line of this verse as the phrase for Krishna consciousness. Kṛṣṇa bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadikutopi labhyate tat laulyam abimulyam ekalam janmakoti sukatayana labhyate. So Krishna bhakti rasa, the mellow of pure devotion to Krishna, bhavitamati, having one's mind completely absorbed in the rasa, of serving Krishna without any deviation. That's Krishna consciousness. So, kriyatam, if you can find it, you should buy it. Purchase it. Go to the market and purchase it. Kriyatam yadikutopi labite. But you have to have the right price. You have to have the price for it. The mulyam. Tat laulyam api mulyam ekalam. That's very poetic. Laulyam is mulyam. So the one price for it, there's no other way to get it, is your intense desire for it, your greed for it. There's once a movie long, long ago, I saw it before before I became a devotee. And it was about the New York stock market and how greed is good. Without greed, no one would buy the stocks. No, material greed is not good. But spiritual greed is good. Never having enough of chanting and association and seeing the deity, we should never be satiated. Never be satiated, because it's ever fresh. That's not true of material happiness. You become very satiated, and at a certain point you become disgusted, but you're addicted, so you can't give it up, so you need an intervention. So that desire for it, and we can get that by hearing about it. So that nectar of devotion, you know, how is Krishna so attractive? Read the 64 qualities of Krishna, and then read the chapter where it gives examples of each one. This is how you can really, you know, become attracted to Krishna personally. How wonderful, you know, his talking, and there's one where he's shy. When is that? You know, that's interesting. How does that happen, you know? So that's been given to us. Prabhupada took so much effort in giving us that nectar of devotion. And even, you know, I always relish the Sanskrit because it's such a beautiful language. So, like, you know, his effort, I mean, this Bhanu Swami, he's incredible. How many books he's published. When I went to Tirupati, I think that's his zone or something, there was like the whole shelves of books that he translated. He gets up at 12 at night, and, you know, he does like Bhagavad, he does the whole thing. So he gave us the Bhakti Samhita Sindhu. Unfortunately, it was no word-by-word meanings. But still, like this one verse, oh, this is such a beautiful verse. But I saw a mistake that he made. The verse goes like this. Where does it go? Kinkini. Kanaka kanaka kinkini kadapam smidnamukam nasika gurmuktam. Kadajatanavanayita pindamagde tanayamaveshananandananda patni. So the word mukta can mean liberation, but it can also mean pearl. And somehow he translated his word, he made it into liberation, but it's not. So kanaka kwanita kanaka kinkini. So Krishna is crawling to his mother. This is in the Bhakti Samhita Sindhu. It's illustrating the parental ras, you know, Vatsalya. So it's just a beautiful meditation. So he's crawling toward his mother. He's very small, you know. He's wearing these wonderful golden not ankle bells, but waist bells. He's got a little fulgent pearl affixed to his nose, tip of his nose. That's all he's got on. So he's crawling toward his mother, and those golden waist bells of his are tinkling very sweetly. That's what Kwanata means. Kwanata Kanaka is gold, and Kinkini are the waist bells. Kwanata Kanaka Kinkini. Can you hear the alliteration? You know, Kwanata Kanaka Kinkini Kalapam. Every word is K. Smita Mukam. He's smiling to his mother. You know, he's coming toward her. Ujjvala Nasika, and on the tip of his nose is affixed an effulgent pearl. So that's what his garment's there. Kinkini Smita Mukam Ujjvala Nasika Gamukam Kadadutta Navanitam. Navanitam is fresh butter. And Pinda is ball. So he's got a fresh butter ball in his hand as he's crawling, one-handed. Kadadutta, holding in his hand. Kadadutta Navanita Pinda Mugde. Taniyam Avekshan Nandananda Patni. And Mother Yashoda is watching him. And Nanda Patni is Mother Yashoda. Nananda means to become ecstasized. Do we need that word in this movement? You won't find it in the regular dictionary. It's from the Oxford Dictionary. Ecstasise means to become ecstatic or to make someone else ecstatic. I think we should integrate it. So this one verse, I memorized it. It's just, you know, and that's why I put this poetry together, because I can chant these verses, you know, walking through the halls, but no one knows the verses. But if I chant some English, you know, we get some. So that's a whole, you know, dynasty. The whole sampradaya is based on wonderful poetry of the Bhagavatam and all of the poetry that was written by the Goswamis and the songs. So it's all about Krishna and all about Bhakti and all about all these things. So if we take advantage of that and share it with each other, you know, this is how our faith is developed, and how our attraction for Krishna is developed, and our detraction or detachment from Maya is nourished. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Sorry, I went over time. But I was just inspired by this verse and this Katpanga. He's my ideal now, Katpanga. Okay, any questions? Vanessa, you there? Okay. Questions?
Hi, Krishna. Yes, thank you for a nice class.
All right, we're looking forward to maybe tonight's class, huh? I know it's a little late. No, it's not. Same time? Yeah.
It's not bad. I don't mind it. Thank you. I'll be there.
Okay. All right. No questions, comments? Then I'll end with a nice little sweet verse with a poem. Is that okay? Okay. So this is my favorite chapter of Krishna book was chapter 21, Venu Gita. I started memorizing it in English. There was no Sanskrit yet, you know. And I remember I started memorizing it. Then I was serving out prasadam in Brooklyn, and I was reciting this, and everyone was saying, "What is this?" We get the rice, and it's reciting Krishna. But then when it came out, when I was working on it in Sanskrit, you know, in Miami, the songs of the gopis, Venu Gita. So there's several introductory verses, and one of them is describing Krishna. They did a painting of it, beautiful painting in Brooklyn. Barhapidam natavadavapu karnayo karnikaram Bibran vasa karnaka kapisham baijayantin chamalam Randran veno hadadasudeha puriyan gopa vrindaya Vrindaranyam sapatanamanam pravishad gita kirti with lovely peacock plume upon his head and fragrant flower placed upon each ear. He enters Braja's woods with graceful tread, a handsome dancing actor without peer. His golden yellow raiment brightly glows, his splendid garland reaches to his knees, and from his luscious lips the nectar flows, and fills his flute with charming melodies. As Krishna thus begins his blissful day, with cowherd friends who sing his glory sweet, he beautifies Vrindavan's forest way, with fine impressions of his lotus feet. Now Prabhupada says in the Krishna book, because after this passage, you know, the translation, that this is real transcendental meditation, you know, because he was competing with that other transcendental meditation. You know it very well. You practiced it for many years. He's still practicing it upstairs in the ashram sometimes, I think, right? I'm just kidding. Anyway, so that's your verse of the day. Everyone can meditate on it, and thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And if you want more poems, come tonight to class. Or you can tune in on YouTube.
Muffin Monday.
What is it? Muffin Monday. Yeah. What kind of Monday? Loka Monday? Shloka Monday. Yeah, I'm hoping to go back to Shloka Loka when I leave this body. That's Goloka. Goloka is Shloka Loka.